So we've seen how different fruits can look. One thing they all have in common is that they all look really good to eat, or certainly interesting to eat. So I've got my felt tip pens here, and I've got going to have a think about how to draw a fantastical fruit. If you want to, you could start working in pencil first of all to get your basic shape down. But I'm going to use some really pale pen, and then I know I can make it a bit darker a bit later if I want to. So when you're drawing a fruit, it's going to be a shape of some sort, whether it's a round shape or a kind of blobby shape. And the thing about shapes like this is that they're all going to work in a similar way, in that they are going to have light shining on them. Everything that we look at in the world has light shining on it, and it casts a shadow to help us see the shape. So we're used to seeing light coming from above because we have the sun and we have lights up in the sky. So to begin with, I'm just going to put a very simple basic kind of scribbly shading in like this. Now I'm not going to leave it like this, don't worry. This is just like an undercoat, just to make me think about where the shadow should come on a round object. And as you can see, the top bit up here is really light because that's where the sun is coming down. And so the light's going to hit this bit of the fruit first. And then under here, we know we're going to get a bit more darkness because that's where the shadow is. And the fruit's probably going to cast a bit of shadow on the table down here, but I'm not going to worry about that because we're drawing a fruit on a white background so that we can put it in the mural later. Okay, so if I think about it, I know I've got pale area here, I've got middle kind of colour area here, and I've got a darker colour area here. So if I choose 3 colours, let me have a think. I'm going to choose this orangey colour for my lightest bit here. Then I'm going to choose a medium orange colour for this bit round here. And then I'm going to choose a rich red round here. And these 3 colours are already shaded in different ways, aren't they? So that's my lighter colour, that's my middle colour, and that's my darkest colour. So if I use these to draw the detail of my fruit, but I'm going to change each one as I come down through my fruit shape. So this is only an outline I'm going to work on. So here's my yellow. So I'm going to imagine my fruit is all lumpy and bumpy. So first of all, I'm going to put some lumpy bumpy bits on my fruit, like that. So I'm going to come back later on and tidy them up, but this is my lumpy bumpy bits on the top here. And then when I come down, I'm probably going to see the top of a lumpy bump, so it's going to look more like a sort of circle. And as I come down to this bit, I'm going to swap over to my orange pen, and my orange pen is darker than my yellow pen, so it's already putting a bit more shadow and a bit more tone onto my fruit. And then I've got my red pen, and this is my darker colour. So when I do my lumpy bumps on this side, they're going to look a bit darker, and they're going to hopefully make a bit like shadow. So that's hopefully starting to look a bit like shadow. So I know that if I want to start colouring in, I can colour in up here in yellow. And I'm not trying to do like really neat or perfect just flat colour, because things aren't just a big flat colour, are they? They have sort of texture on them as well. So if I use a kind of scribbly line, then it should start to hopefully look a bit more like a fruit that's got a surface and a texture going on. So I don't have to worry too much about, because I'm going to build up some layers of colour. Now with these lumpy bumps, if you think about the lights coming this way, so these ones are going to be quite bright, but this one that's sitting up here, that's going to have a bit of shadow around it. So if I actually do this in my next tone down, in my orangey tone, that's going to start to make that stand out a bit more. And this one as well, down the bottom of it, it's probably going to have a bit of shadow on it. And this one here, maybe like, that's going to be shadowy too. And if I use my colours carefully, if I use my light colours first and then have a think about it, I can go back and add in some darker colours when I want to. And it's sort of casting a bit of shadow round onto that fruit. And then I'm going to put some more of my yellow colour in, because I can tell where that definitely wants to be yellow up here, doesn't it? And then I think there's going to be a bit of shadow on this one here, just coming across onto the actual fruit, because that's sticking up in my mind like a sort of thumb sticking up, or a spike, and that's going to give that a little bit of shadow. And then this one too, that's going to have some shadow coming down here. And this one, the lights are going to hit it, but it's in the darker zone, So that's going to have been orange colour. It's going to be my next colour down. And when I want to do shadow on this bit, I'm going to use that red colour to make that look like a bit of shadow. Hope you can see this is starting to work a bit. So yeah, so this is going to be in yellow, I think. And then underneath here, that's his shadow, but I'm going to do it in the kind of orangey bit, maybe a bit round here. And so I don't have to worry about being really neat and tidy to begin with, because it's going to give me some texture. And then I'm going to bring that yellow in here. I give a little bit of yellow on this one, although it's in my next zone, but imagine it's got the light coming down again, hitting it, but it definitely needs to have a shadow here. And I can make some shadow different in some of these areas just by, always remember that the more lines you draw on the paper, the closer together you draw them, the brighter your colour is. So if you leave lots of white gaps, it makes it look a bit lighter and a bit brighter. And if you put lots of pen on your paper, that makes it look really dark. So if you want to make something dark, another way of doing it is adding more pen on it. And you can blend your colours together. So if you're just doing lines like this, that you can put some orange lines down, and then you can go back and put some yellow lines down with that, and it kind of makes an in-between colour in between those two kind of there. So now we're on to this bit here, aren't we? So this bit is going to be kind of orangey on the top because it's in the orange zone and it's catching some light. So again, underneath here I'm going to put a little bit of red because that's going to be my darker colour. Not so much because I don't want it to be too dark, so I'm going to come back with my orange pen, look, and do some orange on top, and that starts to blend it in, so I'm getting some shadow. Now if I come down here, these bumps have got to be quite these are in the red zone, so they're going to be quite dark. So let's get just a little bit of red on these first so we can start to see them. That's it. But when I come down here, oh no, this has got to get really dark down here because this is where the shadow is, and I'm a bit worried that the red isn't going to be dark enough. So if you need to get some really dark shadow on something, what you can do is use the opposite colour, or what they call the complementary colour, to the one that you're drawing with. So I'm drawing with a red and an orange here. And you may already know this, but the opposite, or complementary colour for red is green. So if I now go and get a green pen out of my box of pens, and hopefully you're going to have all this lovely range of colours to work with too. So I'm going to get me a nice green pen like this one. And remember how we did like layering, how we did some colour blended together by layering on top of each other. So where I want it to be really dark here, I'm going to put in some green pen. Now to begin with, it might look a bit strange, but I'm hoping that if we keep blending and layering these colours one on top of the other, that they'll kind of merge together a bit. But you can see how already this is starting to look really quite shadowy. So all my sticky out bits, my lumps and bumps, I'm going to keep them, apart from this one because it's sticking right out and it's very dark. I'm going to keep them in sort of red tones, like that. But as they come into the red here, it's going to have green mixed in with it as well, and that's going to make, see how much darker that red looks now compared to the red in these bits. This is a lumpy bump, it's going to cast a bit of shadow. So if I put a little bit of shadow under it in the red, again, that's sort of going to blend in. There could be a bit of red shadow here, and this one needs to come a bit redder because it's sort of sticking out. And you'll find that when you're doing drawings, if you want to make things look shadowy and dark, if you just use black the whole time to make things look shadowy and dark, when you're working in colour, it can make the colours look a bit sort of dull and a bit muddy. Because if you think about it, when a shadow falls on a thing, on an object, it doesn't change the colour of that object, it just makes the object go a darker shade of that same colour. So if you've got shadows on a red thing, you want to have darker red shadows. And if you've got shadows on an orange thing, you want to have darker orange shadows, not quite black shadows. If you've got something that shadows on a grey object or something that is already very black, then that's okay to use black because it's already a sort of black colour, isn't it? So see, I've done quite scribbly lines. They don't look really posh and smooth yet, but then it's a fruit, it's a natural object, it doesn't have to be totally smooth, does it? Because if you look at most fruits, they've got a bit of surface texture on them. And although this is quite scribbly, if I wanted to, I could now go back in and I could do some smoothing down and I could make some of these areas of colour look a bit more smooth. If I wanted to have a very smooth surface, I'm thinking of something like a nectarine. Who likes eating nectarines? I love a good nectarine. And just with some of these bumps, look, if I now put a little bit of shadow on some of these, they're going to stand out a bit more. I don't want to put too much colour up here, because where I've got lots of light hitting the fruit, it's going to make it bright, it's going to make it look like it's catching a bit of sunlight. See, down here I think I can put a bit more, I need to get a bit more colour onto this bit here, because it looks quite white, doesn't it, compared to the bits up here. So I'm going to put a bit more red in. You see, I don't have to do really, really serious lines to begin with. I can sort of map out the colours that I want. And if I want to, I can go back in later and do them a bit darker. I can bring some red up into this one here to like blend it in with the orange. And that sort of thing. There we go. Oh, look, this one here, I think I can have a little bit of red shadow. I can bring maybe a little bit of red into some of the shadows I've got up in this area too now, because now I can sort of start to judge where I want to get a bit more light and dark in to what I'm drawing. So here, look, I think underneath this one, if I think a spike is like disappearing a bit into the surface, and I can come in with my green, look, and give that bit more shadow, and that, look how much more that stands out now. And if I think the green isn't cutting it, if I think this green isn't going dark enough, what else could I put in here to make this a bit darker? Well, I think I could put, I bet everyone's calling out suggestions now, aren't they? I think I'm going to try a bit of blue or a bit of purple. So if you said blue or purple, you're on the right sort of tracks. So let me just grab my, I think I'm going to see if I can find a nice purple, because purple is a mix of red and blue, isn't it? And it's sort of in between a bit of red and blue. So I've got a nice purple here, look, and it's a slightly reddish purple. It's like real Cadbury's chocolate paper purple. And now if I blend this in on top, oh yeah, look, that's starting to make this really dark, isn't it, down here? This is my really dark bit, because this is where there's no light getting to it, because all the light's coming from up here. And hopefully what you're seeing is that this looks much more like a thing we could pick up with our hands. You know, it makes it look a lot more 3D. So let's get some really good shadows going. Let's make our fruit really exciting and sort of exotic looking. And then when I've got this is my sort of tonal study, I've got to think, well, what else might my fruit have? Or maybe, I don't know what this fruit is, let's give it a name, a spiny delicious. A spiny delicious fruit is going to have a leaf, I think, isn't it? So it's going to have a leaf on it. I'm just going to put a bit more red in there. So what colour leaves? Well, most leaves are actually green, and that's because they have a special chemical inside them called chlorophyll. You may already have studied a bit of this in science, you may not, I don't know. But chlorophyll is a magic substance that does that clever thing that plants do, is it turns carbon dioxide into oxygen. And who breathes oxygen? We breathe oxygen. So that's why plants are so important to us, because the more plants there are in the world, the more oxygen they're going to be making, and the better it is for us. So we're going to have a green leaf in here, because they're going to imagine we've got a stalk coming out of our plant. So I'm going to think there's a stalk is going to come about here. So here comes my stalk, and I don't have to worry about drawing on top of what I've done. It's going to fit in there fine, it's going to cover over it. So here's my stalk coming up. There we go, and I do some twisty lines on this to make this look like a stalk. That's cool. And then I can put like a little bit of, remember again thinking about shadow, if the light is coming in this way, this is going to be a bit lighter, so this side's going to be a bit darker. How can I make it a bit darker? Purple pen. Yeah, I'm going to put a little bit of purple into that stalk on that side. Just a little bit, look, all the way up there, and look how that makes that look a bit more 3D again. It makes it look like it's standing out, like it's popping out a bit. Right, so that's it. And so that's my stalk, so I've got to put a leaf in. Now I don't want to have my leaf completely covering my lovely spiny delicious, so I'm going to just put my leaf in and draw my leaf shape as if it's kind of stretching round behind my plant like that. So there's my leaf kind of coming in there, and leaves usually have, like, you know, veins on them, don't they? They have those bits that sort of come round where the structure of the leaf is. So if I do a central spine, and then I can do some veins coming out, and I can break them up a bit like that, just getting smaller and smaller, and these will be my veins coming out from my leaf. And again, I want to put some colour on my leaf, so I want to put some colour on my leaf, so I'm going to use some greens. I want to use some different shades of green on here because it's going to have different shades going on. So I'm just going to get myself some pale green. Let's find my nice pale green pen. Here we go. Noise of me scrabbling for pen. Here we go, my nice pale green pen. So up here I'm going to put some pale. This is where imagine that the light is kind of shining through my leaf, because it's like a see-through. Leaves are quite thin, aren't they? Quite sort of see-through. So I'm going to have some sunlight coming through my leaf. And if I want to make that sunlight look even brighter, what I can do is grab myself some yellow. Not this yellow, but the really bright sort of primrose kind of yellow that you should have somewhere. Remember, we've got to share these colours, so no fighting over colours. So I'm going to add in some yellow in here, and that makes that green look a lot brighter. There we go. So that's my much brighter yellow. And then I want to put some darker green on the lower half of my leaf. So for that I'm going to put in my darker green colour. And you see how that's helping to make that side of the Spiny Delicious really stick out. Yeah, so if I just put a little bit of that in here. Now I don't want to lose the veins on this side, and you can see because I've used the same colour green, it's sort of disappeared, some of them, hasn't it? They're sort of disappearing into it a bit. So what can I do? Well, I can get either a darker green or a blue maybe to make those veins, draw them in again. So I've got my darker green here, and yeah, look, I can put those veins in again because I can still sort of see where they came, and that makes them stand out a bit more. I can put a little bit of shadow along that sort of leaf there, and then if I wanted to get a bit more shadow into my leaf, into my bottom of my leaf, again I can blend in some purple into that, and that starts to look a bit like shadow in there as well, and it really helps make the bumps of the Spiny Delicious really stand out nice and strong and delicious. Now I've drawn this really quickly, and I've done very quick scribbly moves. You might, hopefully going to have a lot more time than me to draw your beautiful delicious fruits, so you can spend a lot more time blending these colours together and thinking about the shape and the patterns you're going to get on your fruits. You might want to use like lots of little circles to give this a kind of circular feel. Look, if I come in now and I put just some little circle drawings in around some of those white bits, make them feel a bit more like a surface texture. Imagine you're looking close up at an orange and you see all those little sort of segments and little dots on the surface, and I can, you know, just put a few more in like this around and about, and that just starts to give me some texture and makes that look really nice. Like I can imagine how it would feel to pick it up. Or you might want to go in, look very carefully and slowly blend away all these little white bits so you've got a nice smooth colour. But you're going to have loads of time to do me the most beautiful delicious fruits you can think of, and your fruits might be the kind of fruits that when you eat them they taste like sherbet, or they might taste like Coca-Cola, or maybe if you bite into the fruit it might start singing a song while you eat it. Or it might be the sort of fruit that grants you a wish when you eat it. So if you eat your fruit you can wish for something else, maybe another wish fruit. You know, it might be the sort of fruit that unicorns like to eat. So what colour would a unicorn fruit be? What would they choose, do you think, if they were eating? It might be, there is such a thing called a dragon fruit, but what if there was a dragon fruit that was really eaten by dragons? What would a dragon look for in its favourite fruit? Would it be all hot and spicy? Would it be tasting like lava and smoke? So these are all things that you can think about with your drawing. You can think about who's going to eat your fruit. You can think about the magical properties of your fruit. But I hope this has given you an idea about how you can make your fruit look a bit more 3D, like you pick it off the page. So just always remember, sunlight comes from above, so lighter colours at the top of your fruit, and underneath here your darker shadows, and blend your colours together to make these lovely rich dark shadows. Have fun drawing your fruits.